In the modern age of entertainment, we're so used to been there, done that, reboots, remakes. Nothing new when it comes to franchises or IPs. We usually get more of the same, whether it's comics, a TV show, movies, or video games, with a few exceptions. And in 2020, we got an exception, thanks to Sucker Punch, Sony, Ghost of Tsushima for the PlayStation 4, now playable on the PlayStation 5. In fact, Ghost of Tsushima was such a success that it sold 6.5 million copies. This according to pushsquare.com. Quite impressive for a game that is the first of its kind, the first IP in Ghost of Tsushima. It's so successful that it's actually going to get a movie adaptation, which is something a lot of us Ghost of Tsushima fans are very much looking forward to. Now, before we get started, bear in mind there most likely will be spoilers from Ghost of Tsushima. So if you haven't played through the main story of Ghost of Tsushima, or you haven't watched the main story play out, spoiler warnings have been issued. You've been warned. So here's the layout of Japan. You have the main islands of Japan along with Tsushima itself, which is the main map, the only map for Ghost of Tsushima. And this is the way it played out historically. Now, bear in mind, it's not 100% accurate to what happened during the first Mongol invasion in 1274. But once again, Sucker Punch can make it their own version of events because, video games, entertainment, fiction, you get the idea. So the Mongol invasion of Tsushima happened from the Korean peninsula. But at the time, the Mongolian Empire was huge. It spanned all the way to Russia, all the way up here to China. It was huge under Kublai Khan. And once again, Kublai Khan was a work of fiction, by the way. Allegedly, there was no cousin of Kublai Khan named Kublai Khan. Maybe, maybe not. But anyways, realistically, the thing that they did have in common between the real life events historically and the video game is the Mongols invaded from the Korean peninsula to Tsushima, which you can see is the first Japanese island that stands in between the Mongols' invasion of mainland Japan. But historically, it wasn't just Tsushima in the first invasion. They invaded Tsushima, then the Mongols jumped from Tsushima to Iki Island, which is obviously a much smaller island, doing a little island hopping campaign, and then they attempted to invade Japan here in the Battle of Hakata Bay, where the Japanese defeated the Mongols, and the legendary Divine Wind blew the Mongol fleet into the ocean, destroying them and ending the first invasion of Japan by the Mongol Empire, a W for the Japanese Empire. If you want to know more history about the Mongol invasion as well as Japanese-Mongol history, there's a lot of fantastic history channels on YouTube. Feel free and check them out. So the way I would envision the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, say Ghost of Tsushima 2, my first idea, would be a continuation from where the first game left off. Jin finds out that the Mongols have not been completely defeated. Some of them landed on Iki Island and are now preparing to launch an invasion of mainland Japan. So the Ghost travels from Tsushima to Iki Island to help liberate it. But by the time he liberates Iki Island, it's too late. The Mongols have already invaded and taken over this southern main island of Japan. And even though historically it didn't last very long, the Japanese were able to defeat the Mongols here at the Battle of Hakata Bay, the first Battle of Hakata Bay. In a video game, a work of fiction, loose basely off historic fact, Sucker Punch could, bend reality a little bit and just say the Mongols managed to invade and conquer this entire southern portion of the map, which would lead to a much larger map for Jin to venture around, and you, the player, all over the map, liberating it from the Mongols until the final battle begins at Hakata Bay. So this could be the climax of the game, Hakata Bay, which once again, leaves some historic accuracy left for the game to have. And then all of a sudden the Divine Wind wraps it up and defeats the Mongols once and for all. Well, at least for the first invasion, because 5 years later there will be a second invasion. But that's my first idea for a potential Ghost of Tsushima sequel. My second idea would once again be 5 years later during the second Mongolian invasion of Japan in 1281, where basically the Mongols attempted the same thing. They attacked Tsushima, they attacked Iki Island, they also attacked Nagato. By the way, Agato's right here, so the Mongolians ended up landing here, attacking Nagato, and once again, they attempted to land at Hakata Bay, and the same result happened. Japan won the second invasion as well. So you could see my first idea as Ghost of Tsushima 2, and then the second Mongolian invasion 5 years later with an older Jin. We see where his life is 5 years later. Did the shogun pardon him for helping to liberate Tsushima, Iki Island, as well as preventing the Mongolians from invading the rest of Japan? Maybe he gets pardoned by the shogun and he gets to live a quiet life on Tsushima. Maybe he starts his own ninja clan. That'd be kind of cool. But then 5 years later, Jin has to take the mantle of the ghost again. Maybe the shogun says, hey, I'm going to pardon you, but you can never be the ghost again. But unfortunately, because of the second Mongolian invasion, perhaps Jin decides to become the ghost once more. Another idea I have for a sequel before we talk about prequels or potential spin-offs is something that was kind of elaborated near the end of Ghost of Tsushima, where Lord Shimura as well as Jin are talking to a peasant that they help. He mentions something about rumors of the ghost invading the Mongolian Empire, so that is another possibility where they could take the ghost into the Mongolian Empire, have Jin go this way into the Korean continent and liberate Korea from the Mongolian Empire and from Kublai Khan. Maybe that's a direction that Sucker Punch could take the Ghost of Tsushima franchise. Or I think the best route to go is to try and keep it historical and have Jin on the defensive, continuing to try and protect the people of Japan, Tsushima, Iki Island, as well as the mainland of Japan from the Mongolian invaders. Those were some sequel ideas I had for Ghost of Tsushima. Now let's talk about a prequel idea. I think this would be really cool if they decide to go this way, they being Sucker Punch. Go back 20 years to the Yorkar Rebellion. We already have established characters and lore that I would very much like to see more of. A younger Lord Shimura as well as Jin's father. We see their friendship. We see the relationship they have as brother-in-laws because Jin's mother is Lord Shimura's sister. So that explains that family tree right there, because Lord Shimura's sister ended up marrying Jin's father, and that's where Jin comes from. But there's some other interesting backstory. During the Yorkar Rebellion, it is established that Lord Shimura's father and brother were killed in the rebellion. So you get to see kind of like Lord Shimura begins. You see him rise up. You see the relationship between Clan Shimura and Clan Sakai and the bond they form together and other clans in order to rise up against the Yorkar Rebellion before the Yorkarans are able to take over Tsushima and put down the rebellion. So that would be an interesting direction to take with the established characters that we are already aware of, like Lord Shimura, Jin's father, Jin's mother, the sensei, along with the Masakos. That'd be kind of cool to have them all there together, working together to help defeat the Yorkar Rebellion. Maybe the Yorkar Rebellion almost takes over Tsushima and almost drives Shimura's and Sakai's and everyone else into the sea, except for this alliance that brings down the Yorkar Rebellion. It'd be really cool to have more time with the younger Shimura and Jin's father, as well as a few of the other characters as well. A few spin-off ideas I had. I don't know if these would work as much as a sequel, but they could work like as an expansion story DLC set after the events of Ghost of Tsushima. Maybe a story DLC revolved around Yuna, how she's dealing with the outcome of what happened in Ghost of Tsushima, as well as the loss of her brother. And another story DLC I would like to see is revolved around the warrior monk himself, Norio. The fact that his brother's gone and he has to help rebuild his temple, or else he's going to go on his own way, find his own direction in life, as he's either going to find the Eightfold Path once again, or he's just going to go out for revenge against the Mongolians for everything they did, not only to his family, to his fellow monks, to his brother, but to the people of Tsushima as well. Those are two interesting spin-off sequels. I don't know if those would work as their own games, but at the very least, I would not mind a story DLC revolved around Yuna and our Norio as well as the quote-unquote protagonists. So there you go. Those are some of the sequels, prequels, spin-off ideas for future installments of Ghost of Tsushima. I hope that we at least get 1 or 2 more games. I don't want this to be milked to the point of Assassin's Creed, but I do feel like if we go by some historical events that we mentioned already, that Sucker Punch definitely has a little bit to go on to create at least a second and a third game in the Jinsakai arc. You know, with the continuation of the first invasion as Ghost of Tsushima 2, and then 5 years later, wrap it up with Ghost of Tsushima 3 with the second invasion, or a hypothetical reversal where the Ghost invades the Mongolian Empire. To be honest, I feel like that one's a little far-fetched, but I also would very much like to see a prequel to Ghost of Tsushima as well, revolved around some of the established characters that we already mentioned. Which of these ideas did you like or not like, and what sequels, prequels, spin-offs of Ghost of Tsushima would you like to see? Feel free and let me know below in the comments section.